I'm Senator Tanya Vyhovsky. I'm a state senator from Vermont, and I'm a clinical social worker, and I am American Ukrainian. The last 3 years have been incredibly hard to stand up for what I know is right, and there is incredible division on the left. There is a fascist in office, and this is the third time in 4 days that I've given some version of this speech. And every single day before I do it, I have to look to see what horrific thing has happened back home. We have someone in office who is disappearing legal residents because they disagree with him, who is ignoring judicial orders and sending people to out-of-country prison camps. This is not business as usual. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the Democrats in the United States are acting as if it is. They're acting as if we can just wait 2 years for the midterms and sure, things are going to be a little uncomfortable. But the reality is the Musk-Trump agenda is a fascist agenda, and the Musk-Trump-Putin agenda is a global fascist agenda. It is not business as usual. It is not time to sit back and wait for the midterms. It is not time for anyone who's paying attention to not be screaming that this has to stop. And with the evaporation of support and the wholesale betrayal of our obligation to Ukraine and our obligation to global democracy, we need the EU to step up. We need the UK to step up. We need that void to be filled. Because while it's critically important for me personally that the war in Ukraine ends with real peace, and that means no occupation, no land annexation. It means that the Russian troops go home. It does not mean that we are holding the Ukrainian people hostage for resources. It does not mean Ukraine is not for sale. We simply must protect that. And this is very important to me, both because I believe in the sovereignty, the rights of sovereignty and self-determination, but also because I have family in Ukraine. From a larger picture, though, Ukraine, if we don't protect Ukraine, global democracy is at stake. There is no world in which Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Vladimir Putin stop. They are looking at a sovereign nation full of real people who are suffering as assets to be divided up. And they will look at every country they march into after that exactly the same. Anyone who thinks that this agenda is not a threat to them is delusional. It is a threat to all of us. It is a threat to humanity. It is a threat to our climate, and we have to act. There are many Americans who agree, perhaps not as vocally as I do, but there are Americans that agree, and they don't know what to do. And as I said, it is very divided, but we simply have to create a global network of solidarity. The oligarchs and the billionaires and the, frankly, mobsters that have taken over the government, they have connections all across this globe. They are talking to people in Russia, obviously, but they're also talking to people in Belgium and in Britain, and they are making a plan to divide up the world as they see it only as assets. They see it through the lens of capital. People don't matter, only profits matter, and we have to stop that. And we can, but that's through building international working class solidarity. That is through coming together as everyday people who understand what is happening and remembering that we are connected. What happens to Ukraine happens to all of us. I have a responsibility to all of you because you are human beings and you matter more than profit and capital. And we have to build that network. I am deeply committed, and I've been saying this for years, in building a network outside of the structures of corrupt and oligarchical governments to take back our world, to build a world and a system that centers the needs of our planet and the needs of our people over profits and capital. I obviously can't do this alone. And so that's why I'm here. It's why I went to the UK and I spoke in the UK. It's why I'm here and speaking. It's why I will go and I will visit Ukraine. It is why anytime I'm anywhere, I make sure to connect to people and to government to figure out what is happening here. I know that the news in the US has been bought. by all of those oligarchs and mobsters. And I know that that's true, and it's unfolding in more and more places. We're seeing in more and more places that privatization is happening. You know, the NHS in Britain is further being privatized. And I'm talking to people about how NGOs are starting to do the work that it has historically been government work. It's these little erosions at civil society that lead us to full-scale war and destruction, and it has to stop. And we know there's a better way. Am I like not really talking to them?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And now I've lost my train of thought. And that's actually where I was. I was going down how this is spreading across the world, the fascism, the oligarchy. And I'm hearing more and more that, oh, we're going to do this like the US does it. We're going to do that. The US should be a cautionary tale, not a pathway towards something sustainable or functional. We have people who die because they can't afford healthcare. The single greatest cause of bankruptcy is medical debt. We have children who don't eat unless they're at school, and then they have debt at school. Don't follow the path that we have taken. It's wrong. It's barbaric. In fact, I have found myself in the past 10 years looking to see who's going to save us. The frightening piece about all of this, though, is that in spite of how dysfunctional we are, in spite of the fact that we now have a corrupt fascist mobster in the Oval Office, that fascist mobster does still have the largest military in the world, does still have the greatest wealth of any nation in the history of the world, and does still have his finger on the nuclear codes. So we also have to get him out of there. And certainly there are pathways to do that, but unfortunately we have also lost the courts. And so I also think that it's a critically important time for Europe to be thinking about how Europe defends Europe and how we stay connected underneath the sort of typical networks. Because while the US as a government structure can't be relied on as an ally, Ukraine certainly knows that. People in the United States, I think, can, and I think we have to be building those communication networks so that we are connected and we can stand in global solidarity. It's all very terrible, but I do have a glimmer of hope. And it is just a glimmer. There are multiple congressional seats in the United States, because one of the biggest challenges we have right now is the Musk-Trump regime, and actually Putin's probably part of it in the United States too, hold the courts, they hold the House, they hold the Senate, and they hold the executive branch. Now here's my glimmer of hope. I know that wasn't very hopeful. There are multiple congressional seats right now that are open and up for special election due to appointments and resignations. And if we were able to flip those from being red seats to blue seats, we could take control of the House. If you had asked me in November if it was possible to flip any of those seats blue, I would have laughed at you. However, due to the unprecedented nature that this administration has come in, people are angry. And I actually think it is possible that those special election seats could be flipped to blue. Just yesterday, a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania, it was a district that went plus 15 for Trump in 2024. And it was open for special election due to an appointment to a staff office seat at the federal level. And just yesterday, a Democrat won that seat by 547 votes. That's not a huge margin to win by, but it was plus 15 Trump in November. And so I think people in America are waking up. Not enough. It has been wonderful to be surrounded by people here who understand the gravity of what we are facing and understand the historical risks of what we're looking at. This has happened before. We know what happens if we don't act. We know how this goes. And the good news is if we can learn from our history. The spinelessness of the Democrats in the United States and the sort of apathy and sense that this is just more of the same stuff has been really difficult to sit with. I've sat in committee spaces and I've sat in activist spaces where I'm told, like, you're overreacting, that can't happen here. However, we know it can. But that the rage that I'm seeing that has flipped a plus 15 Trump district blue, the rallies that I'm seeing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders bringing out tens of thousands of people, what that says to me is we are waking up. The American people are considering fighting back. And that gives me a glimmer of hope. And I do want to close. We absolutely need the EU to release frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. We need you to give Ukraine everything they need to win, because they need to win, and they need to win quickly, because this global fascist wave is spreading. And that is what is really at this point sort of upholding any semblance of democracy we have. The bigger fight beyond that is to fight for a world and a structure of government that puts people and planet over profit. And I do believe that if we come together and we stand together, we can and we will win. We must win. So thank you for bringing me and for welcoming me so openly, given how horrific what is happening in the United States is. And I'm happy to talk to anyone if there are specific questions or specific thoughts. I'm happy to connect with people, because I think the only way we beat the rise of global fascism is with global working class solidarity. So thank you.